continue the story. Here's Chapter 2 of HOA Bans My Christmas Lights. Big Mistake. Chapter 2, The HOA Strikes Back. The morning after Daniel's dazzling light display first lit up the neighborhood, the whispers began. Oakwood Hills, a community where gossip traveled faster than the morning newspaper, was buzzing with opinions. For many families, Daniel's home had become a shining beacon of joy. Children tugged at their parents' hands, begging to walk by and see the glowing snowmen, the twinkling reindeer, and the synchronized lights that pulsed perfectly to Jingle Bell Rock. Cars lined the curb, headlights dimmed, as visitors recorded the spectacle on their phones to share online. But inside the HOA office, the mood was anything but festive. The board convened an emergency meeting, led by their president, the ever-watchful Karen. She wasn't just annoyed, she was outraged. To her, Daniel's lights weren't just decorations, they were a blatant act of rebellion, a slap in the face of the authority she worked so hard to maintain. For years, she had enforced the rules of Oakwood Hills with an iron grip, ensuring uniformity and compliance. If Daniel's defiance went unchecked, others might follow. And if that happened, her control would slip. So the HOA struck back, quickly and mercilessly. Daniel woke up the next day to find another notice taped to his front door. This time, the violation wasn't just about decorations. The letter accused him of creating a public nuisance, attracting excessive traffic, and endangering the safety of the community. The fines were increased to $500 per day, and the letter warned that if he didn't comply within 72 hours, the HOA would file a lawsuit against him. For many homeowners, that would have been enough to force them into submission. Lawsuits meant legal fees, stress, and endless battles in court. The HOA knew this, and they wielded the threat like a weapon. But Daniel wasn't intimidated. He looked at the letter, shook his head, and pinned it to his refrigerator like a trophy. The more they fought him, the more determined he became to stand his ground. News of the escalating conflict spread quickly through the neighborhood. Some residents quietly supported Daniel, slipping words of encouragement into casual conversations. They admired his courage and secretly despised the HOA's iron-fisted rule. Others, however, were nervous. They feared that his defiance would bring chaos, higher fees, or stricter enforcement for everyone. And then, of course, there were those who sided openly with the HOA, parroting Karen's complaints about traffic congestion and unsafe conditions. The once peaceful streets of Oakwood Hills were beginning to fracture. Neighbors who had once waved politely at one another now whispered behind closed blinds, choosing sides in what was quickly becoming a neighborhood war. Meanwhile, Daniel wasn't backing down. Instead of dismantling his display, he expanded it. Every evening after work, he added something new. First came the glowing candy canes that lined his driveway, then the giant inflatable Santa waving cheerfully at passers-by. His most ambitious addition was a massive archway of lights that stretched from the sidewalk to his front door, turning his home into what looked like a gateway to the North Pole. The effect was undeniable. Crowds grew larger, cars lined up longer, and soon, people from outside Oakwood Hills were driving in just to see the famous Christmas house. Social media posts spread like wildfire, and Daniel's home became a local sensation. What began as a personal holiday display had turned into something far bigger, a symbol of resistance against the HOA's suffocating rules. The board, however, saw none of the magic. They saw only rebellion. Karen, furious at the growing popularity of the display, began escalating her tactics. First, she called the local police, insisting that Daniel's lights caused a traffic hazard. When officers arrived, they found nothing illegal, just families admiring the decorations. The police left with smiles on their faces, even complimenting Daniel on the display before they drove away. Next, Karen filed complaints with the city, claiming Daniel's display violated safety codes. Inspectors arrived, clipboards in hand, but after a thorough check, they found no violations. In fact, Daniel had gone out of his way to ensure everything was safe and compliant. His wiring was secure, his display stable, and his extension cords weatherproof. Once again, the HOA's efforts crumbled. Each failed attempt only fueled Karen's rage. She began patrolling the neighborhood at night, documenting the cars that stopped in front of Daniel's home, taking pictures and sending them to the board as evidence of disruption. She sent emails to residents warning them that Daniel's actions could result in increased HOA dues to cover legal expenses, hoping to turn the community against him. But her plan backfired. Instead of isolating Daniel, her heavy-handed tactics drew sympathy. Families who had quietly admired his lights now began voicing their support more openly. Some even decorated their own homes, adding strands of lights or small displays in solidarity. For the first time in years, Oakwood Hills began to look less like a sterile magazine spread and more like a community alive with holiday spirit. This shift terrified the HOA. If they couldn't stop Daniel, they risked losing control entirely. And so, the board doubled down once again, issuing Daniel with an official notice of legal proceedings. They were taking him to court, determined to crush him once and for all. But Daniel wasn't alone. By now, his story had spread beyond the neighborhood. Local news outlets caught wind of the Christmas house war, and reporters began showing up to cover the unfolding drama. Cameras filmed the lights, children laughed in the background, and anchors described the situation as a battle between holiday cheer and HOA tyranny. The attention only made Daniel's home more popular, drawing even larger crowds. The HOA, once feared and untouchable, now found itself painted as the villain in the eyes of the community and beyond. But Karen didn't care about appearances, she cared about control. She was prepared to drag Daniel through court, drain him financially, and make an example of him. Daniel, on the other hand, had no intention of bowing out. He had faced down threats, fines, and intimidation, and each step had only strengthened his resolve. This wasn't just about lights anymore, it was about freedom, about standing up to an authority that had gone too far. As December deepened and Christmas drew closer, the stage was set for an explosive confrontation. The HOA believed they had the power of rules and regulations on their side. Daniel believed he had something stronger, the power of community, spirit, and determination. The battle that was about to unfold would not only decide the fate of one man's Christmas lights but would expose the very foundation of the HOA's control over Oakwood Hills. And as both sides prepared for the next move, one thing became clear: the quiet suburb would never be the same again. End of Chapter 2. Next chapter will show how the legal battle begins, the neighborhood takes stronger sides, and Daniel finds unexpected allies. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 3 now?